Hello again. This is Nabi Ahaya Alua, Malek Boaz Ben Yochanan Ben Dawid. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to go ahead and play back this video that is from my Christmas video that I made a few weeks ago. I understand there's a lot of background noise and distraction. So the video feature is unable to be clearly heard. So I'm playing this back. This goes in conjunction with the first video I did in reference to Christmas being a Christian holiday. This is a revamping or a recapping, just so that way the featured video, can be played and clearly heard. So without further ado, Baruch Shalom and enjoy.
The question is whether the church would really have depended on secular parallels or Hellenistic parallels, which have idolatrous or polytheistic associations in the mind of these early Christians who were very committed to the monotheistic tradition of Judaism.
The presentation of Jesus born from a virgin, born from the Holy Spirit, whatever it might have meant to Jews, would have been very attractive to non-Jews at the time. This is the kind of thing that would have been appealing to people in the Greco-Roman world.
The virginal conception doesn't deny the humanness of Jesus. It puts stress on his origins in the Spirit of God. Whatever we say about his divine origins or his divinity itself should not in any way deny the fullness of his humanity, because if it does, then we're not talking about the Jesus that Christian faith has always believed in.
Perhaps the greatest of all the mysteries surrounding the birth of Jesus, the virgin birth seems destined to remain a mystery. A powerful sign from God to those who believe in it, and a powerful enigma to those who question it. But there are some questions which history can answer. Those answers, however, may be very different from some of the world's best-known traditions. Christmas, celebrated as the birthday of Jesus, brings to mind beloved images of winter, softly falling snow. Yet there is no historical basis, not even in the Gospels themselves, for placing the birthday of Jesus near the end of the year. Is it possible that Jesus was born in an entirely different season? "500 years after the birth of Jesus, the faith his birth inspired had become the dominant religion of the Western world. But Christians were still using a pagan calendar. They numbered years from the reign of the notorious Emperor Diocletian, a well-known persecutor of Christians. Diocletian began his rule in the 3rd century after Christ. It would take 2 centuries more until, in the year 533 CE, Christians decided enough was enough.
Church fathers decided that rather than count years from the beginning of the reign of a impious, non-Christian Roman emperor, that they should count the years with the birth of Jesus. And so Dionysius Exiguus, a monk living in Rome, was given the project of determining when precisely Jesus was born.
Given his marching orders, Dionysius Exiguus, whose Latin name meant Denis the Short, started digging through the archives of the church, searching for the true date of the birth of Jesus. Eventually, he decided that Jesus had been born 754 years after the founding of Rome. To this day, no one knows why he picked this number. He renamed it the year 1 of our Lord, in Latin, Anno Domini. But not everyone was happy with his decision.
Dionysius used the best information he had, but the early church fathers and historians who had looked into this weren't unanimous at that time. So they had to pick a date. They picked the best date, and he was the one assigned to do it, and they used his date. But I don't think it was unanimous ever.
Nevertheless, Dionysius Exiguus declared, apparently without evidence, that the year 1 had commenced on January 1st, precisely 533 years earlier. Christians of Dionysius' time did agree that the Holy Birth had taken place on December 25th. But for the first 300 years after Jesus lived and died, December 25th was not Christmas. Christians celebrated the birth of Jesus on an entirely different day.
The birth of Jesus originally was celebrated along with the visit of the Magi and the baptism on January 6th. And we have evidence for that as early as the end of the 2nd century, beginning of the 3rd. Others place the birth of Christ as late as April 21st or May 1st. The date of December 25th does not come around until the 4th century.
Today, no one knows why early Christians celebrated the birth of Jesus in January, April, or May. But an ancient story reveals why, in the 4th century, Christians began to celebrate Christmas on December 25th. The answer lies in the traditions of a powerful pagan god. The sun's unconquerable power and dazzling majesty made it a favorite deity of Roman emperors. The Romans believed that the sun was reborn each year at the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. On that day, the sun vanquished winter's cold and darkness, bringing new life with the warmer, longer days of spring. Today, the winter solstice falls on December 21st. But for the Romans, the winter solstice fell on December 25th, a day they declared holy to the sun. On December 25th, worshippers of the sun lit candles in its honor. They feasted and offered each other gifts. It was an immensely popular celebration in which Christians freely participated. The church disapproved of its members celebrating with pagans, but nothing could separate Christians from this festive pagan holiday. And so, sometime around the year 300 CE, church leaders made a very practical decision.
Christians seem to have placed their birth of Christ at the same time as this festival, December 25th, as a way of countering this festival and asserting that Jesus himself had overcome the forces of darkness and had become the Son of Righteousness, a phrase which comes from the Old Testament prophets.
We may never know with scientific certainty just when and where Jesus Christ was born. But regardless of what is known or unknown, Christians will continue to celebrate the miracle of their Savior's birth on the day and in the place their faith proclaims.
Okay, so as you see, the birth of Christ was never initially noted in December at all. It was either noted in January or in early spring. And they said end of April, beginning of May. And the interesting thing is that is also the beginning of the Hebrew New Year. So it is a very good possibility that is a very good possibility that Christ was born during either the planting harvest or the planting season or the harvest season. Reading the Bible, one can easily surmise that most likely Christ was born during autumn, during the harvest season, at the time when the crops were being pulled up. The flocks were out in the fields during the day, but brought in at night when it was cooler. So even with these dates that are noted here, it still doesn't really correctly and properly line up with the description that's given in the Bible. Furthermore, as it mentioned, Christians refused to disassociate themselves with this pagan tradition of celebrating the Son, not the Son of God or the son of the Almighty being, but the sun in the sky. December 25th was always a pagan, ritualistic, ceremonial day for winter solstice for the death and the birth, or death and rebirth, of the sun in the sky. Not the Son of Man, not the Son of God. As you see, this video I was able to take off of YouTube. You see the title here. There are naturally quite a number of other informative videos that are on YouTube that speaks other mysteries of the Bibles and whatnot. But not everything is clearly described and displayed the way it needs to. So that way a person can have true, unhindered, unadulterated knowledge of the truth, and not just true, unhindered, unadulterated knowledge that someone wants to give you. With that being said, I praise and glorify the heavenly Abba, Yahuwah, and his Ben, Yahushua HaMashiach. I send you all with peace and blessings, Baruch Shalom. And I pray that you guys begin to look into some of these things yourselves. And if you are a Christian and you claim to truly follow the Messiah, then you would know that the Messiah would not follow these traditions and these celebrations. So you yourself should do as the Messiah does, or would do, and separate yourself from the world. This is Nabi Ahaya Alua, Malek Boaz ben Yochanan ben Dawid. Baruch Shalom.